They called me a parasite, a leech, a disgrace to the family name. And on the night my father smashed my laptop into my skull, I realized that sometimes the cruelest prison is the one built by the people who are supposed to love you most. Every morning in that rotting apartment was a reminder that I, Cassie Monroe, was nothing but a burden, a mistake, an embarrassment to this family. The words echoed in the damp walls of our rundown place in the industrial outskirts of Pittsburgh, where the air always smelled like rust and defeat. I was 24 years old, a senior in biomedical engineering at Carnegie Mellon, drowning in student loans but clinging to a dream that seemed more impossible each day. My thesis was my lifeline, my ticket out of this hell. I was designing a biocompatible polymer spinal implant for remote areas without access to surgical facilities. It was not just a project. It was my soul on paper, my one chance at escape. But my family saw it differently. They saw my education as betrayal. I was the first person in our family to go to college, and instead of pride, it bred resentment. My father, Ray, a perpetually unemployed alcoholic with a beer gut and stained undershirts, saw my ambition as an insult to his failures. My mother, Brenda, silent and complicit, saved all her maternal instincts for my older sister. And Savannah, 28 years old with bleached blonde hair and a social media addiction, treated me like I was her personal punching bag for online content. The apartment we lived in was a decaying two-bedroom in a neighborhood where gunshots were more common than birdsong. Mold crept up the bathroom walls. The heating barely worked. But I had my corner, my rickety desk, and my second-hand laptop that held everything I had worked for. That night started like any other. I was hunched over my laptop at 11 p.m., finalizing calculations for my thesis defense that was just 3 weeks away. My eyes burned from staring at the screen for hours, but I was so close. The data was perfect. The simulations worked. This implant could change lives. The door slammed open and my father stumbled in, reeking of cheap beer and cigarettes. His bloodshot eyes landed on me with that familiar look of contempt. "You worthless leech. You think you are so smart with your fancy college shit? You think you are better than us?" I did not respond. I had learned years ago that engaging only made it worse. I kept my eyes on my screen, trying to save my work. "Look at me when I am talking to you." He lurched forward and grabbed my shoulder, spinning my chair around. Behind him, I could see Savannah with her phone out, already live streaming. She was grinning, that cruel smile she wore whenever she was about to humiliate me for her followers. "Dad, show her what we think of her stupid plastic bones project." Savannah cackled, angling her phone to get a better shot. What happened next shattered everything. Ray grabbed my laptop with both hands. I lunged for it, screaming no, but he was faster. He raised it above his head and smashed it down onto the desk with brutal force. The screen cracked, but he was not done. With a roar of rage, he lifted it again and hurled it directly at my head. The impact was explosive. Metal and plastic connected with my skull and everything went white. I felt myself falling, the world tilting sideways. When my vision cleared seconds later, I was on the floor, warm blood running down my face from a gash on my forehead. Through blurred vision, I could see Savannah zooming in with her camera. "Oh my God, looks like Miss Genius needs a doctor." She was laughing, actually laughing, as she filmed me bleeding on the floor. "This is what happens when you think you are too good for your own family." The laptop lay in pieces around me, my thesis destroyed. 4 years of work, thousands of hours. My entire future, shattered on the stained carpet of this godforsaken apartment. I should have cried. I should have screamed. But something else happened instead. As I pushed myself up, blood dripping onto my shirt, I felt something cold and hard crystallize inside me. Savannah was still filming, still mocking. My mother stood in the doorway, watching, saying nothing. My father was already walking away, cracking open another beer. I stood up slowly, wiping blood from my eyes. Savannah kept her camera on me, narrating to her viewers about her dramatic loser sister. I looked at her, at the phone, at my broken laptop on the floor. "This is the day you sealed your fate." My voice came out hoarse but steady. "All of you." Savannah laughed harder. "Oh, she is threatening us now. Did you hear that, guys? The parasite has teeth." I walked past her without another word, grabbed my backpack, and left. I did not take anything else. I just walked out into the Pittsburgh night with blood on my face and rage in my heart. I did not go home. I could not. Instead, I walked 3 miles to campus and found my way to the engineering building. I used my student ID to get in and collapsed in a study room, my head pounding, dried blood cracking on my skin. The next morning, I cleaned myself up in the bathroom, the gash on my forehead angry and swollen. I looked at myself in the mirror, at the cut that would definitely scar, and I made a decision. I was not going to be a victim. Not anymore. I went straight to Dr. Eleanor Vance's office. She was my thesis advisor, a brilliant woman in her 50s who had always believed in my work. I knocked on her door at 7 a.m. When she opened it and saw my face, her expression shifted to shock. "Cassie, what happened to you?" I did not waste time on explanations or sympathy. "Doctor Vance, I need 24/7 access to the lab. My thesis was destroyed. I am going to rewrite it, and it is going to be better. She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. You have got it. Whatever you need. For the next 3 weeks, I lived in that lab. I slept in 45-minute intervals on the couch in the graduate student lounge. I ate vending machine food and ramen noodles I heated in the communal microwave. I did not just rewrite my thesis. I rebuilt it from the ground up, incorporating everything I had learned plus new innovations I had been too cautious to try before. I added 3-dimensional printing capabilities for custom-fitted implants. I integrated nanomaterial sensors for real-time health monitoring via smartphone. I designed a cloud-based system where doctors could remotely track patient recovery. My original thesis had been good. This one was revolutionary. They thought they could destroy my future, but they did not know what they had created. They had created a monster, and monsters hunt. The words became my mantra as I worked through the nights, my fingers flying over the borrowed laptop Dr. Vance had given me. Every calculation, every simulation, every line of code was fueled by that cold rage that had replaced the scared girl I used to be. 3 weeks later, I stood in front of the thesis defense committee. I had not slept more than 3 hours in the past 48. The cut on my forehead had healed into a thin red line that would definitely leave a permanent scar. I wore a simple white blouse and black pants. Nothing fancy, but I stood straight and my voice was clear. I did not just present technical data. I told a story. I talked about children in rural areas, born with spinal defects, who would never have access to the surgery they needed. I showed 3-dimensional simulations of my implant, demonstrated the working prototype I had printed in the university lab, and displayed the interface I had coded for the remote monitoring system. My final slide was a hand-drawn picture on a napkin that I had photographed and digitized. It showed a little girl standing straight, smiling, because she could finally walk without pain. The room was silent when I finished. Then Dr. Vance started clapping, and the rest of the committee joined in. The applause was thunderous. Miss Monroe, the committee chair said, this is without question the most impressive undergraduate thesis we have seen in a decade. You have not only met the requirements, you have exceeded them in every possible way. I won the Outstanding Thesis Award, a full-ride PhD scholarship with a research stipend, and 3 job offers from major medical technology corporations, all with 6-figure starting salaries. As I left the presentation hall, diploma and award certificate in hand, I saw them. My father and Savannah, standing at the back of the crowd. They had come, probably expecting to watch me fail, to get content for another cruel social media post. Their faces were pale, shocked. I looked at them for exactly 2 seconds, my expression blank, then turned away and kept walking. They were already ghosts to me. I did not go back to that apartment. I used part of my signing bonus from the job offer I accepted to rent a small but clean studio near campus. It had actual heating, no mold, and windows that locked. It was mine. For 3 weeks, I heard nothing from them. Then Savannah started calling. I let every call go to voicemail. She left messages that swung wildly between rage and desperate apology. On social media, she had deleted the videos of me getting hurt, probably after realizing they made her look like a monster. Too late. Then, 4 weeks after my defense, I decided it was time. Time to close this chapter permanently. I drove to the old apartment on a Saturday afternoon. I knocked on the door and waited. Savannah answered, her eyes widening when she saw me. Before she could speak, she lunged forward, trying to grab my hair like she used to, already pulling out her phone to film. You made me look bad online. All my followers saw what a bitch you are. I was ready. I grabbed her wrist and twisted, not hard enough to hurt but firm enough to stop her. With my other hand, I took her phone and threw it to the ground, where it shattered on the concrete stoop. That is the price for thinking social media is your weapon. Her scream brought Ray stumbling to the door. He started to yell, probably about to call me ungrateful or worse, but I held up a thick envelope. This is for you. He took it suspiciously and opened it. Inside was a check for $50,000 and an itemized bill. Every month of rent I had technically used for 5 years. Every meal. Every utility bill. Calculated to the cent. This is everything I supposedly owe you. Every penny I was a burden. Now, none of you can ever call me a parasite again. Ray stared at the check, his hands shaking. That is when I handed him the second envelope. This one contained a job offer letter, embossed with the logo of MedTech Innovations, a leading biomedical company in San Diego. Senior Research Engineer. Starting salary $120,000 a year, plus stock options and benefits. I am leaving. I am going to California, and I am never coming back. Not for holidays. Not for emergencies. Not ever. My mother appeared behind them, silent as always. I looked at her, this woman who had never once defended me, never once chosen me over Savannah. You had a choice every single day. You chose wrong. Ray's face turned purple with rage. He threw the check on the ground and started smashing furniture, overturning the coffee table. Savannah was screaming, crying, a total meltdown. But I just stood there, watching the chaos, feeling nothing. I turned and walked to my car. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror one last time at the apartment complex, at the life I was leaving behind. I felt no sadness, only relief. 6 months passed like a dream. San Diego was everything Pittsburgh was not. Sunshine, ocean air, possibility. I threw myself into my work at MedTech, and within 4 months, we had our first prototype ready for clinical trials. The patent was filed under my name. I was becoming exactly what I had promised myself I would be. Then my phone rang one evening. Unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. Cassie! Oh my God, Cassie, please. It was Savannah, and she was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Dad had an accident, he lost his job, Mom is sick, I got divorced, I have no money. We need you. Family is everything, right? You have to help us. I put the phone on speaker and set it on my desk. I did not say anything, just let her cry and beg. When she finally ran out of words, I spoke. Family? You defined what family meant a long time ago. I do not fit that definition anymore. I hung up and blocked the number. 2 weeks later, I got an email from my old high school. They were hosting a Women in STEM event and wanted me to be the keynote speaker. When I saw the date and location, I knew my family would hear about it. Part of me hoped they would come. The day of the event, I wore a tailored navy suit that cost more than my father made in a month back when he was employed. My hair was professionally styled. I looked successful because I was successful. The auditorium was packed with students, parents, teachers, and there, in the second row, I saw them. Ray looked older, defeated. Brenda was thin and frail. Savannah was puffy from crying, her bleached hair grown out to show dark roots. I stepped up to the podium and smiled. Good evening. I am Dr. Cassie Monroe. 10 years ago, in this very school, I was told I was a dreamer, worthless, that I had no future. I was mocked for daring to want more than what I was given. I was betrayed by the very people who should have loved me most. I paused, letting my eyes drift to my family. I did not name them, but my gaze made it clear. I told them about the night my laptop was destroyed, about the gash on my head from the impact, about being filmed while bleeding on the floor. The audience was silent, horrified. Some people turned to look at the second row, putting pieces together. They thought they had destroyed me, but they did not. They created me. They turned a victim into a warrior. They taught me that sometimes your worst enemies are the people closest to you. I clicked to the next slide, showing my patent documents, the clinical trial results, and the letter from the FDA approving our device for human trials. And today, I stand here not to forgive, but to show you that when you are trampled, when you are despised, use that pain as fuel. Build a future so brilliant that the people who tried to drown you have to look up at you with regret. After the speech, as people crowded around to congratulate me, my family tried to approach. Ray pushed through the crowd, his face a mix of shame and desperation. Cassie, I was wrong. Family needs to heal. We need to be together again. I looked at him. This man who had terrorized my childhood and tried to destroy my future. Heal? You broke it beyond repair. There is nothing left to fix. I pulled out a USB drive from my purse and held it up. This contains the data for my latest patent. A medical technology worth billions. Do you know what it looks like when a parasite creates a future you could never even dream of touching? Savannah pushed forward, mascara running down her face. I am sorry. I was jealous. I wanted to be like you. I looked at her with complete indifference. You had everything. Family support. Comfort. Easy love. I had only myself. And I won. I turned and walked away. Their voices called after me, but I did not look back. That night, I stood on the balcony of my penthouse apartment overlooking the San Diego harbor. The city lights sparkled below. Boats glided across the dark water. I held a glass of wine, taking a slow sip. My phone buzzed with messages from the event, people wanting to connect, opportunities flowing in. But I was not thinking about any of that. I was thinking about the girl who had bled on a dirty carpet in Pittsburgh, who had been called a parasite by her own father. She was gone now. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who had learned that revenge was not about watching them suffer, though they certainly were suffering. Revenge was knowing they would spend the rest of their lives in regret, looking up at what I had become, remembering the day they turned a victim into a victor. I raised my glass to the city, to the future, to the scars that had made me who I was, to the monsters who created a monster. I whispered, "Thank you for showing me I never needed you at all." The next morning, I woke to an email from the head of research at Johns Hopkins. They wanted to collaborate on expanding my spinal implant technology to pediatric applications. Another door opening, another opportunity that would take me further from the past. I deleted 3 more voicemails from Savannah without listening to them, blocked 2 new numbers that my mother tried to call from. My father sent a friend request on LinkedIn that I declined with a sense of grim satisfaction. They were becoming obsessed with reaching me, and I understood why. It was not really about money or help, though they desperately needed both. It was about their egos. They could not stand that the family disappointment had become the family success story, and they had no claim to it. At work, my team was celebrating. Our implant had passed the first phase of clinical trials with flying colors. The patients, mostly children from rural communities who had never had access to proper treatment, were walking, running, living full lives. We had a wall in the lab dedicated to their photos and thank you letters. One letter stood out. It was from a 7-year-old girl in Montana named Emma, written in crayon with backwards letters. "Thank you, Dr. Cassie, for fixing my back. Now I can play with my friends. You are my hero." I kept that letter in my desk drawer. On hard days, I would read it and remember why I did this work. Not for revenge, though that had been the spark, but because I understood what it meant to be broken and to need someone to believe you were worth fixing. 3 months after the speech, I received a formal letter from a law firm in Pittsburgh. My father was suing me for elder abuse and neglect, claiming I had a legal obligation to support my parents financially. The audacity was almost impressive. I called my lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Chen, who had handled my patent filings. "Let them try," I told her. "Discovery will be very interesting for them." Patricia laughed. She knew what I meant. Any lawsuit would require them to prove their claims, which would mean exposing every abusive incident, every cruel word, every documented failure as parents. The social media videos Savannah had deleted were not really gone. I had archived everything. The lawsuit was quietly dropped 2 weeks later. But the final confrontation came on a random Tuesday in November. I was in Baltimore for a medical conference, giving a presentation on next-generation biomedical implants. The auditorium held over 500 people, researchers and doctors from around the world. Halfway through my presentation, during the Q&A session, I heard a commotion at the back. Security was escorting someone out. I squinted against the stage lights and saw her. Savannah, screaming, being dragged out by 2 security guards. "She is a liar. That is my sister, and she abandoned us. She is not a hero. She is a selfish bitch." The audience was stunned into silence. I stood at the podium, microphone in hand, and made a decision. "Stop," I called out to security. "Let her speak." They released her, confused. Savannah stumbled forward, her clothes rumpled, hair a mess. She looked like she had not slept in days. "You left us with nothing," she shouted from the back of the auditorium. "Dad is sick, Mom can barely walk, I lost everything, and you just ran away to play scientist." I walked to the front of the stage, looking directly at her. The entire room was watching this family drama unfold in real time. "You want to do this here? In front of everyone? Fine, let's do it." I turned to the audience. Many of you heard my keynote speech about overcoming adversity. This is my sister, the one who filmed me bleeding on the floor when our father gave me a concussion for pursuing my education. The one who called me a parasite for going to college. The one who made my childhood a living hell and then posted it online for entertainment. Savannah's face crumpled. "That is not fair. I was young, I was stupid. You were 28 years old. You were an adult who chose cruelty." I looked back at the audience, many of whom were taking notes or recording on phones. The irony not lost on me. She asks why I left them with nothing. But I gave them $50,000 to cover every cent I supposedly owed them. They chose to squander it, just like they squandered every opportunity they ever had. I do not owe them my success. I do not owe them my future, and I certainly do not owe them forgiveness. "Cassie, please." Savannah was fully crying now, sinking to her knees in the aisle. "We are family." "No." I said it firmly, clearly, so everyone could hear. "You were my family when it benefited you. When you could take from me, mock me, use me, but family is not a one-way street. You do not get to abuse someone for decades and then demand loyalty when you need something." I turned to security. "Please escort her out, and make sure she does not have access to any of my future events." As they led her away, still sobbing, I returned to the podium. I took a breath, composed myself, and smiled at the audience. Now, where were we? Ah, yes, the question about scalability in developing nations. I finished the presentation to a standing ovation. Afterward, dozens of people came up to me, not just to discuss my research, but to share their own stories of toxic family members, of choosing themselves over obligation. I had accidentally become a symbol of something larger. That evening, alone in my hotel room, I finally let myself feel it. Not regret, not sadness, but a profound sense of closure. Savannah's public humiliation was not something I had planned, but it had served a purpose. It had shown the world, and more importantly shown her, that there were consequences for cruelty. I opened my laptop and wrote an email to Dr. Vance, my old advisor, the woman who had given me lab access when I had nothing. "Dr. Vance, I want to endow a scholarship at Carnegie Mellon. Full tuition, room and board, and a research stipend for students from abusive homes who are pursuing STEM degrees. No student should have to choose between education and survival. Let's call it the Second Chance Scholarship." Her reply came within an hour. "Cassie, this is extraordinary. Let's make it happen." 6 months later, the scholarship was established. The first recipient was a 19-year-old girl from rural Kentucky whose parents had kicked her out for wanting to study engineering instead of getting married. When I met her at the award ceremony, I saw myself in her eyes. That same hunger, that same determination, that same quiet rage that could fuel a revolution. "You are going to do amazing things," I told her. "And when you do, remember to help the next person climb up after you." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I will, I promise." As I drove back to San Diego after that trip, I thought about the journey from that blood-stained carpet in Pittsburgh to this moment, about how pain could be transformed into purpose, about how the people who tried to break me had actually forged me into something unbreakable. My phone rang. Unknown number again. This time I answered, "Cassie." It was my father's voice, weak and raspy. "I am dying. Lung cancer. The doctors say I have maybe 3 months." I waited, feeling nothing. "I want to see you. To apologize. To make things right before I go." I thought about it for exactly 5 seconds. "No, please." His voice broke. "I am your father. Biologically, yes. But you were never a dad. You were a bully who happened to contribute DNA. I hope you find peace, but you will not find it with me." I hung up, blocked the number, and kept driving toward the sunset, toward the life I had built from ashes and spite and sheer will. 2 months later, I received a notification that Ray Monroe had passed away. There was a funeral. I did not attend. Instead, I was in Geneva, presenting my research to the World Health Organization, discussing how to bring affordable spinal implants to developing nations. I heard through a former neighbor that Savannah had shown up at the funeral alone, that Brenda was in a nursing home, paid for by Medicaid, that the whole family had collapsed under the weight of their own toxicity. I felt no joy in their suffering, but I felt no guilt either. They had made their choices, I had made mine. Standing here now, 3 years after that night in Pittsburgh, I can see the whole arc of it. The girl who was called a parasite became the woman who saves lives. The family that tried to hold me down became a cautionary tale. The pain that could have destroyed me became the foundation of everything I built. Revenge, I have learned, is not about destruction. It is about transformation. It is about taking everything they said you could not be and becoming it anyway. It is about living so well that your mere existence is proof of their failure. I do not hate them anymore. I do not think about them much at all, and that, perhaps, is the sweetest revenge of all. They are irrelevant to my story now. Just a dark chapter in a book that turned out to have a very bright ending. I raised my wine glass one final time to the city lights, to the Pacific Ocean beyond, to the future that stretched out before me like an open road, to the girl who survived, to the woman who thrived, to the truth that the best revenge is a life well lived.